I'm so old. Why am I so old? Can you guys actually hear me? Just, can anybody tell me if you can hear me? Can you hear me? Oh Lord, I'm going to... Oh, good, good, good. I'm so glad. Ah, thank you, Bissy. How are you doing? Hi, Fred. Just so you all know, I don't even know if I'm doing this right. So I think there's somebody else who's meant to join me here. But I don't know. God. Instagram is not for people over 35. That's my feeling now. Love you too. Love you, Bissy. Do you know, Bissy, people have been depriving me of Pakposhito. I just want you to know. Nobody brings Pakposhito to Nigeria for me. Hello. I've never done this before. This is so cool. Ooh. Okay. Hi, Remy. Hi, Umuganwa. Thanks, Bissy. Okay, so we've got 2 minutes. Remy, if you can hear me, is there something else I'm supposed to do? Hi, Tolu. Remy, am I going to be getting the questions in those comments? Leila! Leila! Wow. This is so interesting. So I just go ahead with my reading, Remy? Okay, so it's time to start. So I've been instructed to give to wait for 5 minutes just to chat and say hello. My name is Lola Shoneyin. I'm here in Lagos, like many of you, on lockdown. My lockdown has been very interesting, and I'm sure many of you saw how energetic I was on Twitter a few nights ago. And just so you know, everything is cool. I am extremely happy. I just kind of blew my top. But I'm really happy now, raring to go. Can't wait to organize the festivals. Looking forward to all the challenges. Lagos is rather quiet. There's a sense in which I keep saying that this is a bit of a middle class lockdown. So if you go to, you know, some of the more upmarket areas, yeah, people are at home. But from everything I've heard, in other parts of Lagos, it doesn't seem as if people are being as careful as they could be. But not to worry. I was just, does anybody have a, hi, oh, Mohale Mashigo. How am I supposed to concentrate on anything when I'm just seeing all you people that I love so much? Huh? So, Remy, am I supposed to let people join the live video? Like when I get a request? This is so strange. I'm so not ready for... Hi, Chike, Frankie, baby. Love you all. Yes, Ake is definitely going to happen, but for the first time, we're going to have a digital Ake. So most of the events will have a program. We'll follow the program. We'll try and have maybe one live program. Well, one a day. We're thinking if we can swing it, but the truth is we still don't know what's going to happen. Okay, so I'm looking for... Aha, all right. So I'm going to read from Baba Segi, The Secret Lives of Baba Segi's Wives. And I'm going to read from Polygamist, a chapter called Polygamist. For those of you who haven't read the book or heard about it, Baba Segi is about a polygamous family based in Ibadan, in Oyo State, in Nigeria. And this man who's relatively successful, even though he hasn't had much by way of education, is he gets married to three amazing, you know, he's got these three wives, and then he falls in love again, and the fourth wife is a graduate. But after 2 years, nothing happens. She doesn't get pregnant, and he's got all these other children, and he's like, what's going on? So that's kind of where we are now. Okay? So I'm going to read from a chapter called Polygamist, and this is when the fourth wife, Bolale, arrives at her new husband's house. You're saying I should do a pinned tweet, Zuki. How on earth am I don't know how to do that. Okay. I didn't just happen upon this room. I dreamed of the pale green walls before I arrived. Now the built-in wardrobe is mine, and so is the ceiling fan. My window looks over a backyard with patchy but neatly trimmed grass. Damp clothes flap in the evening breeze and perfume the air with detergent. On the back wall, an iron drum is darkened from burnt refuse. A tap juts out from the grass, and a weathered concrete slab lies beneath it. It's not a perfect view, but it's mine. There are no flowers or trees, no fields, no rolling hills, just a vegetable patch where Iyafemi cultivates joss peppers. I know that smell well. My mother used to cut them into fried eggs whenever she fell pregnant. The aroma from the frying pan would keep the rest of us on the cusp of a sneeze. Sorry. Okay. From the cusp would keep the rest of us on the cusp of a sneeze. Then one day, as Mama sat in the front yard, wrinkling her nose, the babies would leak down her leg. Who could blame them? Maybe they heard her relentless and decided it was better to be born unformed. I must have covered my ears when I was in her womb, or perhaps she was quieter then. Don't get me wrong. I didn't only come here to get away from my mother. I came to get away from the feeling of filth that followed me. If I stayed at home, I knew the day would come when Mama would come to my room and find pools of blood at my wrists. After everything happened, I tried hard to continue being myself, but I slowly disappeared. I became Bolanle, the soiled, damaged woman. Except that was hard too, because Mama kept trying to make me do all the things the old Bolanle would have done. Don't you think you should get a job, Bolanle? Won't you apply for the bank job in the newspapers, Bolanle? Didn't you see the handsome boy that was looking at you, Bolanle? How could I tell her that I had failed to preserve my dignity? I was too ashamed to let her see the fickle shell that I'd become. Inevitably, it became unbearable. The more she pushed, the more I resisted. I didn't want a job. I didn't want a white wedding. I just wanted the war between who I used to be and who I'd become to end. I just didn't want to fight anymore. Somehow, it all made perfect sense when I met Baba Segi. At last, I would be able to empty myself of my sorrow. I would be with a man who accepted me, one who didn't ask questions or find my quietness unsettling. I knew Baba Segi wouldn't be like younger men who demanded explanations for the faraway look in my eye. Baba Segi was content when I said nothing. So yes, I chose this home, not for the monthly allowance, not for the lace skirts, and not for the coral bracelets. Those things mean nothing to me. I chose this family to regain my life, to heal in anonymity. And when you choose a family, you stay with them. You stay with your husband, even when your friends call him a polygamist ogre. You stay with him when your mother says he's an overfed orangutan. You look at him in another light, and you see a large but kindly, generous soul. Thank you. I can read some more if you want, but I'm waiting for Remy to tell me what to do here. Hi, Troy. Remy, would you like me to read some more or send a request? View. I did. I don't know what happened. I think this is it. Oh, read more? Oh, okay. So this is where it gets a bit juicy. Hi. Hi, Remy. How are you doing? So I should keep reading?
Hello. Your
How are you doing?
You see your prince. Your prince is here.
I see the way. Are you spraying me money?
I'm spraying money for your blessings. Here, lower.
This is
wife. Look at the. Thank you. Yeah, blessings.
This is
blessings.
What
blessings.
denomination? What
blessings.
Denomination are you spraying? Because that's very important. I don't normally take anything like less than $100 because I'm a. You know, if I was younger, say in my 20s, I might be looking for something like $500, but you know, I'm only 46.
You know,
how are you doing?
You know, as a respectable woman, we can only start paying in like $100 US. So I was throwing serious money. How do you like my my attempted scarf. My wife made it for me. We nearly broke curfew trying to get this outfit done.
I think you look stunning. It's unusual to find a man, to find a man wearing a scarf in Nigeria.
We couldn't find like the little cap thing, so we just improvised. So we had to do the best that we could.
Oh God, I'll send you one. I'll send you one soon, okay? I'm gonna send one to you. You just need to measure your head for me, the circumference, and let me know, and then I can just have it made. It's the easiest possible thing. Don't worry, I'll do that.
Okay. So the reason why we're throwing money, we were celebrating the virtual reading of a book. I don't know whether you've heard of this book. Do you know this book?
I've heard of the author. Is extremely sexy. I've had my eye on her for a long time. Can you introduce us?
Yeah, that's why I was throwing the money around, because it was like a celebration. So I just thought it would be a good way to start. But thanks for having this, Lola. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm really good, thank you. It's I don't know if everyone else is kind of feeling the way that I am feeling, but I've kind of discovered a few things about this period. One of them is that my insomnia is just out of whack. Right? It's crazy right now. I go entire nights without being able to sleep. I've lost my appetite, which is very unusual, you know? So it's just weird. I think it's because we don't do as much activity during the day. That's why we're not tired at night. But
yeah, all the sleep cycles and everything has gone out of sync. So let's start with the questions. So I will read all the questions that everyone writes in the chat, and then I will also have some of my own. So my first one is, with the secret lives, has anyone approached you and asked you, are you any of the wives? Which one, like, have they assumed that one of them is autobiographical?
People ask me that all the time. It's a question that I get, you know, people ask in different ways. Sometimes people say, which is my favorite? I think there's perhaps a piece of me in all of them. I think the one that I lived vicariously through the most was probably Iyafemi. And that's because I know so many women who are actually just like her, who speak like her, who think like her, who look at religion or God as really a weapon for destroying enemies. I think in some way with the first wife, Iyasegi, there's her strength and just her need for control. I don't have much in common with Iyatokbe, but she's like, she's the sort of person that I always feel I have to support. So that was easy for me as well, because I could just think about all the things that make people different, that people are often wary of, but which actually I gravitate towards, because I just, you know, want to kind of just make life more meaningful, especially on our continent where there isn't much done to support people who live with any kind of disability.
And then the follow-up question is, what is the one question that you wish people would ask you about this book? What do you think, like, the one question you wish people would ask but they never have?
I don't particularly have one. Let me I wish people would ask me about the crafting of beautiful sentences that took me so long, and how there's so much poetry in the book. But I realized that, you know, you're writing the book, you're the writer, you're writing it, yeah? And you're doing all these amazing things that you think, oh my God, people are gonna see that and they're gonna be like, whoa, champion. But then people don't see those things at all, either because they're completely engrossed with the story, or, I mean, I don't know what reason, but there's just, you know, sometimes I wish people talk about, you know, maybe my use of language, but they do focus a lot on the characters. But you know, that's just me letting out a little
very captivating characters. So I can understand why they get so distracted. I mean, that's the beauty of the writing. Like, it's just very engrossing. Okay, so there is a very relatively unknown writer called Chike who wants to know that Baba Segi is quite a braggadocio about his sexual prowess. Did you do that because of the myth of the Yoruba demon?
The Yoruba, the whole thing around the Yoruba demon wasn't around in 2008 to 2010, which is when I was actually writing the book. I'll tell you that I read A Lion and the Jewel by Wole Soyinka, and there was this larger than life character, Baroka, who could have all the women that he wanted, who had money, who had position. So I think there was, and I hated that character when I read that book when I was 14 years old. I didn't like that character in Soyinka's book. And I felt how is it that men can just have anybody they want? That's what I was thinking at that age. So when time came for me to write this novel, it was almost like writing back to Baroka. So you think you have all these things, but then life deals you a coin that you were not expecting. And I wanted this big, wealthy man to experience that sort of takedown. So that's why I kind of framed him, that way.
Natalie wants to know, was there ever a chance for Bonale and Baba Segi in the ideation stage? Was there ever a chance for them?
I always wanted her to leave. I'll be honest with you, because for me and the way that I understood feminism within the African context, but also what I could just see and observe around me. Around that time, I remember this demographic survey that came out, I think in 2012, which showed that almost half of the women in Nigeria, for instance, were in polygamous marriages. So I kept saying to myself that here we've got religion, like Islam, saying, okay, you can have more than one wife. But the fact is, it's actually less that than anything else. And that's why I don't talk too much about religion in this book. Because the truth is, polygamy is a cultural thing. It's our culture. We've been doing it for years. And I kept saying to myself then that as a feminist, is it possible to be a feminist and to be in a polygamous family? Those were the questions that I was asking myself at the time. I didn't think polygamy would come to an end anytime soon, but I wanted there to be a situation where there was at least some sort of agreement, where there was a kind of contract between the participants in that family. And because Bolanle knew she was never going to get what she wanted, it just made sense for her to be able to leave and go and find her own life. So no, they were never going to. Iyasegi definitely queer.
There are two questions I'm going to string together, and one of them is, why the journal or diary entry style of the book, and then how long did it take to finish the book in that style?
It's not really a diary entry. The style is not, well, if you're going to have a diary entry, then you would have to have like a date. It could be a fictional date, and that's not there, at all. The chapters are kind of named after people or well, something significant that's actually going on in the chapters. And sometimes it's deceptive. So I choose quite a random thing, like, you know, like rat head, for instance, as a chapter. So it wasn't the diary method. It was just multiple narrative voices. But I really wanted to get into the heads of the women. So for me, that's how I did it. So it was each wife having her own say. The truth is that the whole of this book takes place over a period of 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, from hospital to the end. Yeah. So it was a question of always kind of going back and forth and filling in all the gaps. That was important to me. So that's how I did it. What was your second question, Remy?
How long did it take to finish the book? And the question was from conception to publication.
Oh, well, a lot of you know, somebody's just asked me about Harlot, which was what I submitted for Africa 39. I wrote Harlot and we tried to sell it with my agent. It was, you know, when you hear that agents in the West were saying, we already have a Black author in our stable, that was the period that I was publishing in. So when we would send, I mean, I remember somebody said something like, we have Kaimela. Kaimela is a Black queer author, I think from Jamaica. But as far as they were concerned, they'd kind of take that demographic. So we couldn't sell it, and I was it was very depressing for me. And at a certain point, I just wanted to put the book behind me. That's Harlot. So I called my agent, and we said, okay, what are the next steps? And I said, well, there's this idea that I have for a book that I've been wanting to write as a play since I was 14 years old. And she said, tell me the story. So I told her the story in about 1 minute, and she just said, Lola, that's your next book. That's the book you're going to write. So I started, I was going to school I was doing my postgraduate degree in education at the time. So I had about 3 months to really focus on it, break it back. I had a clear idea and vision of where I wanted the different characters to go. And then I had to go and finish school and do my teaching practice and different things. So I had to put it aside. So when I then got a full-time job, which is maybe about a year later, I was writing 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. every day for about 6 months. So yeah, I just was banging away at it. So you can say like all together, probably about 12 months. But when you spread it out, it's more like 18 to 24. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so there's another I think it's a broke Nigerian prince trying to be invited to Ake. His name is Leye. I don't know whether you know him. He says that your sentences are beautifully crafted. Leye Adenle. He says your sentences are beautifully crafted. He's definitely a broke Nigerian prince.
That's my Leye. I love Leye so much. I've known Leye. When you're looking at when I look at some of my contemporaries right now, like I look at the people that were kind of in the same generation, Leye is close to my age, but he's published only recently. But I've known Leye for ages. We grew up in the same neighborhood. He used to have a best friend called Gyon. So yeah, I love that. Go on.
Do you think there's a difference between writers who publish later and writers who publish earlier? Like, have you noted differences in their writing or their maturity or, you know, things like that?
First of all, I just want to say I love you to my girl, Amin, Lip Gloss Mafia. I love you so much. You know it. You know, I love that girl. But do you know, when we think about, I'm trying to think, how old was I when I published my novel? So I'm 46 now, and it came out, I think, in 2010. So I was 36. I'd already published 3 books of poems because I kind of started my writing career as a poet. So I wasn't really kind of in a hurry to publish a novel, but it was just something that I kind of thought I could do, and therefore then wanted to do, and kind of wanted to tick that box. But when you look at people like Toni Morrison, who started publishing kind of later in life and still gave us some of those fascinating stories, I can only conclude that with writers who publish when they're a bit older, they have the benefit of just having lived longer. And that means that their work will often be a lot richer, but it will also come with a lot of wisdom. I'm not saying that Baba Segi is necessarily like that. I'm just saying that that's how, when you're looking at people like Bisi Ajakpon, people who kind of publish a little, when they're a little older, when they've lived interesting lives, I think the content is always more interesting. That's not to knock people who publish earlier. You know, they've got great ideas, they're raring to go. I'm just telling you what it's like for me as a writer.
Yeah, and so following that, there's a very young broke writer from Kenya called Troy, who wants to know what happened to the novel Harlot, and that was accepted. What happened to that? Is it still?
I already answered that question. You're not the only one who keeps asking me that. I do have people in my family who also keep asking me. It had its issues, I think, as a novel, but I've never really gone back to it except when Africa 13 were asking for an excerpt. And the reason is, my fear is that I took a lot out of it for Baba Segi, because I'm one of those writers who I do kind of rely a lot on my personal story, my family, the stories that people tell me. So a lot of the stuff that I write comes from here. My worry is that I've already taken the soul and spirit out of Harlot and put it in Baba Segi. But I'll have to, I will go back one day. I am writing another novel.
Great.
But I don't know when I'll finish it. I'm waiting for a rich Nigerian prince to put me in a castle.
Okay, so then definitely Layers out of the running. So, you know, it's time to look abroad. So there's another question. What do you see for the future of African publishing? How should African authors write, given the Western gaze that they write under, if there is such a Western gaze?
I wrote my book for Nigerians. I just want to kind of make that clear. I wrote it, I was thinking of a Nigerian audience. And in doing, and here's the thing, even though I was in my mind writing for a Nigerian audience or African audience, Nigeria has 300 languages, I think, or something like that. So I'm Yoruba, and there are many parts of the novel where it's a direct translation from Yoruba. And I also use a lot of proverbs. So for me, people have asked me, why did you write that proverb? Why did you kind of craft it that way? I wasn't so much thinking about the West. I was thinking about non-Yoruba speakers within my own community. And I think that's something that we all have to consider, you know, when we're writing, if we want to, that it's not just, for me, the West really doesn't matter. So we're doing this thing called One Read that we're setting up, where we're going to have we have a beautiful app that we've built, and we'll put a book, an African book on that app every month. The reason is we've got to kind of look inwards. We've seen the model in India. I want to big up a writer that you, Remy, tell me is fantastic, that my other African brothers and sisters say, you know, this person is worth reading. That's what I'm interested in. Because if we don't think like that, we will not grow this industry. We are very conscious of reading what the West presents to us, you know, and I get it because hype, you know, travels. But we have to create our own hype on this continent. And that is my goal. That's where I'm going in my life. That is why I started, you know, Ake Festival, Reader Books, all those things. It's about having some sort of autonomy, just as a continent, you know. We want to make our own stars, if that's okay.
Totally. So in that one answer, you basically summed up like a lot of things that I was going to ask, and I think a lot of people are asking. So now this is the segment of the interview where we ask you the very controversial questions, and they're very short and very quick. Okay. So when your house is burning and you can only save one of two things in the house, are you saving your manuscript in progress or your favorite rubber penis?
I don't use rubber penises. That's the thing. You know, I'm 46 years old. So, you know, I can talk about these things quite openly. I don't use rubber penises. If I want to be happy with myself when I'm doing DIY, I don't need a penis. It's not, penetration does nothing for me. I just want to put it out there. Well, it does something, but, you know, sometimes it's just nice that, look at Remy. Remy is now suddenly shy. See your life.
Question. What are you saving? What are you going to save?
I'm saving the manuscripts. Which rubber penis? Which rubber? What is a rubber? In Nigeria, we say penis. We don't say penis. We say, no penis is following me out of my house if my house is, because I can always buy another, you know, I can buy one if I wanted to, but I can't buy another manuscript. So, yeah. Question 2, please. I bet you it was Zuki that planted that question. CRI.
Okay. Okay. The next one is so,
yeah, Molara, Layla, love you.
People are trolling us on the reel. So the next question is,
okay,
what is the most overused Nigerian literary cuisine? As in, what food shows up too much in Nigerian literature and you're like, it's actually not that good. We need to stop writing about that.
I don't think one exists. I think all Nigerian foods are worthy of attention.
Cola nuts. What?
No, but you've got to understand. No, I hear what you're saying. But the truth is that the cola nuts are very much part and parcel of the Igbo culture. We eat cola nuts as well in the Southwest Yorubas, and even in the North. But cola nuts has a particular significance when it comes to, you know, Igbo culture. So when people sit and gather to meet, they break kola nut. It's their way of saying welcome. We don't have that tradition. So it really wouldn't surprise me if you heard the word kola nut in any book written by an Igbo person, because it's part and parcel of their culture.
Yeah. Okay. The next one is, when the library is burning down, what 5 books from like Africa would you try to save? The library is burning down and you can only save 5.
That's very unfair. I would definitely save. Okay, so I would save Malara Wood's Indigo, just simply because of the wisdom. She's one person who's written, who's brought out a book at a later kind of middle age. So there's a lot of that wisdom that I was talking about, but she's also somebody who understands the Yoruba language in a way that humbles me. So I definitely want to take that. I think it would be a great companion.
So Indigo?
I would definitely, yes, I would also definitely take Stay With Me by Ayobami Adebayo. I think it's a fantastic book. See, the problem here is that you've asked a publisher to name 5 books. So what I'm going to do to your life is that I'm going to name 5 of my authors that we publish, because this is just not a no. Let's be honest. This is not even this. It's not because you are here. I'm telling you, Molara would. You haven't even scratched the surface of the sort of attention that you should get as a writer. Everybody knows you as an editor, as a critic. People need to see your work. So that's important to me. So yeah, I would definitely go for Lives of Great Men by Chike Frankie Edozie, just because it's important.
I've never heard of this writer. I really don't know who Chike is. I don't know about this book that I've been hearing about for so long. Like, is it this guy? Is it this guy? Are we talking about
it's just some guy that likes to hound me all the time. But because he's written such an amazing book, we just have to tolerate him. But I would definitely take that. I would definitely take Nnedi Okorafor. I would definitely take with me, or Dafe Atogun. And you don't try and stop me at 5, my friend, and then I'd have to take the poets as well. Dami Ajayi and Logan February, who I think are just stunning.
All right, great.
See?
Then we have another one. Who do you think, out of the contemporary Nigerian canon, who do you think you would be most willing to be third wife for?
Chike, of course.
No.
Frankie Edozie. Because he will let us have an open marriage. That's why. We'll have an open polygamous marriage.
Okay.
I'll just marry him. We'll be okay. Go on then.
Okay. Next question. This one's This one's not so raunchy, but it's basically now because the coronavirus has changed the way that we're probably gonna have literary festivals in the future. It's already affected them now, and looking forward with care and I don't know, any virtual lit fest. Basically, we want to know for the young writers out there. And this is like, I'm trying to troll people like Troy who are very young, these 21-year-old writers. What is the key to being a good literary citizen? Because we know you not only write, you publish, you hold festivals, and you dedicate a lot of your time towards developing other writers. So what is the word of wisdom, or like words of wisdom for younger writers out there? What is the key to them being good literary citizens? Because it's obviously impossible to just I don't know, be stuck in your own work or stuff like that.
That's such an important question. If we had a kind of charter for African writers, that would be really interesting, what the content would be. For me, just looking at my own journey, I've actually spent a lot of today on Twitter, because somebody described me as an icon, which is definitely not the way I see myself. But I thought it was still important at this stage to just share some of the stuff that I've done. Because my writing goes back over 2 decades. My writing, the stuff, I formed my own publishing house at 23. I wrote my first book at 23. I also had my first child at 23, and so I have never, ever, ever in my life looked at anybody within the older generation and looked at them as an adversary or as anything but someone to be revered. And that, I think, was the culture that I was, brought up in within the Association of Nigerian Authors. I mean, when we would go to the convention, I mean, I joined in 1995. I mean, when I would see these big authors, you'd have to really go, oh, please, can I just take a picture? You couldn't, you'd almost be afraid to speak to them, because you don't want them to know just how stupid you are at that age. So it's better to keep the conversation short. But I would say that I don't know of a lot of writers of my particular generation who are not doing all sorts behind the scenes to support new writing and new writers. This absolute bull fucking shit that's happening right now on this continent with young writers looking at the generation before and their achievements as enemies or gatekeepers. I mean, I can't think of anything more obtuse, I have to say. Anybody who uses that word gatekeeper near me really actually just deserves a slap in the face. Because people, when you ask the people that they consider gatekeepers, those are the people who have actually devoted their lives to supporting them, to giving them a platform, to bringing them up, to pushing them to write. So I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know. In fact, I've been blaming myself just as an individual. I'm thinking, this Ake festival, is it part of the problem in that, have I made the older generation, even the generation before me, have I made them too accessible? Is that where this sense of entitlement comes from? Because I don't understand it. I've never had it in my life. I never thought of Festus Yayi as competition. I worshipped people like Niyi or Shundari. You know, I worshipped them. I learned from them. I was hanging to their every word. I'm not asking anybody to hang onto my every word. That's not how I live. That's not what I want. But we can respect each other. We can respect our institutions and make sure they survive. So this whole rubbish with, you know, that started with brittle paper, for instance, in my mind, I was just thinking, one amazing platform minus one amazing platform leaves us with zero. I don't get it. We should all be working hard to make sure every single thing survives. When people call me and say, I want to do a festival, or I've had this problem, I support them. I use my money for, even sometimes donor money for Ake Festival, divert a little bit of it sometimes to other people so that they can grow. Even people who want to do like publishing anthologies, I got funding from the US and I gave them $1,000 to go and publish the book. I don't know how else I'm supposed to, as an individual, to support young people. Maybe if I just slit my throat and give my blood, that will solve the problem. I don't know. But let's all respect. No,
Lola. Don't do that.
Let's just all respect one another and learn from one another, because we need one another. We need one another.
Yeah. And then, so I just see a very young debut author joined us. Her name is Maza Mengiste. She just published her second debut novel. What advice would you have for her if she were to find herself on a literary panel? What are like your 5 do's and don'ts for young authors like Maza?
Yeah, Maza's, she's quite young. I don't know. And I think the success is going to her head. I mean, if she's got this much success at such a young age, it just won't do. In fact, she's one of the ones I'm talking about from the younger generation. So, number 1, respect the elder. No. Are you really asking me about the do's and don'ts on a panel? The one that comes to my mind immediately is using your phone. So I've had some fantastic young writers that I've worked with who, when they're reading poems, they're reading from a phone, or who, when they're on a panel, they're looking at questions from the phone. I can see how it would work with a larger tablet. But when you have a phone there, it's just not good for, you know, even the optics, because it looks like you're reading a text message. So I would definitely say that's a no-no. Yeah, I think also one thing I've learned from being on panels is kindness and generosity. And that's both when I'm on a panel with younger writers, I'm on a panel with my contemporaries, and I'm on a panel with people who are much older than me. I always have that in mind: respect, kindness, generosity. Nobody is on a panel to put the other person down. Nobody is on a panel to because you want everybody to think you're the most woke African feminist, you know, or you're the one with the sharpest tongue or the biggest experience. Respect people, you know, just respect everybody. And I think if we all did that, we'd get, I don't need people to like me, you know, I really don't need it. I don't care whether people like me or not, because I'm so lucky and blessed in my life. The people who are my friends really mean something to me. And I don't need more than those people who mean something to me.
No, I hear you. Then the next one comes is just again with the...
What does youth mean? Oh, we're the youth. Oh, it's just BT. They were saying youth. I was like, what the hell is youth? Oh, God. Us youth. I love you too, Rona, baby.
Yeah, my last question has to do again with Ake and Virtual Lit Fest. Is that now that we know things like this can negatively affect literary festivals going forward with Ake, will there be virtual supplements to the physical thing? Because I don't think the physical festivals will ever go away, because they're so necessary and just a good way to connect with other writers. But do you think going forward all literary fests will have this virtual element to them?
This is what I told Tando. Tando, who organizes Abantu, spoke to me. He sent me a message a few weeks ago. I think he was going through the same sort of turmoil that I was going through, like, you know, what's going to happen? What are we going to do? Do we start planning a regular festival, or we start planning a digital festival? At what point is it okay to make that decision? And I told him that, you see, you're saying that festivals that you can attend physically should never go away. I completely agree with you, but I have prepared my mind for a situation where we are going to be doing more online. It's like I keep saying about education. Nobody's going to send their child to school knowing that that child could be at risk of catching something. It makes sense for us to get this 5G going and make sure that we're able to use the internet to fulfill, you know, our needs. I mean, what we're doing is amazing. I would happily run a festival like this. Can you have more than 2 people on an Instagram live chat?
No,
or is it just
this
2?
Is purely monogamous. Hey, we don't allow third parties, Lola. Thank you.
You don't allow polygamy in this and stuff.
No,
okay.
we don't.
So there'll be some like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
so,
then we'll look at all sorts of other methods.
Instagram Live is going to cut our feed very, very quickly. Do you have any last, I don't know, parting words? Because you've definitely like given me a lot of tea and a lot of sauce to think about. And I'm sure, like, you know, those of us who are very new to the craft, like Maza, and those of us who are very senior, like Troy, we've got a lot of things to go home and think about. So I just want to know what your last words will be before we log off.
I just want to say that I want to promise everybody that I am going to continue doing my very best for the development of African literature. It's never going to stop. What will change is that I clearly need to be super careful about the people that I work with, the people that I trust, the people that I entrust with the things that I create. And I am super excited and stoked about all the things we're going to do. We've got this One Read project. It's amazing. You're going to hear about it over the next week or so.
No, great.
Thank you, Remy.
Thank you so much,
love
Lola.
you guys. I love you all.
Yeah, we really appreciate you taking the time, and this was lit. This was very fun. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah.
Bye, guys. So what do I do now, Remy? Tell me.
Yeah, so I'm going to log out, and then you're going to log out, and then please remember to share this story, this video to your Instagram, to the live feed. So don't say delete, say share to story. A window will pop up after I log out. All right, cool.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Lola. Thank you.
Thank you, Remy. I'm going to see you at Ake Festival.
Away, away. Yeah, see you then.
See you, brother. So you log out. Log out. It says end video.